The night was heavy with rain, the kind that makes the city look like it's sweating under the weight of its own secrets. I was closing the shop late, counting the till when the lights flickered once, twice, and went out completely. The hum of the neon sign died, and the street outside turned into a black void. My hand went instinctively to the drawer beneath the counter, where I kept an old revolver, a remnant of the years when this neighborhood had teeth. Then I heard it. The back door creaked open, soft but deliberate, followed by the wet squelch of shoes on tile. My pulse climbed. Someone was inside. I could hear the faint, steady breathing, a man's, and the metallic sound of something being dragged. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. Just the sound of footsteps growing closer, slow and confident. My heart drummed against my ribs as I lifted the gun, trying to steady my hand. The flashlight from my phone barely sliced through the darkness. Its beam fell first on the floor, muddy prints leading toward me, and then on something else. A gloved hand. "Take what you want. The money's in the drawer. Just don't..." The figure stepped into the light. Black hoodie, mask, a gun in his hand. "Don't move," he said, voice low, distorted by something. Maybe the mask, maybe hate. I froze. The room smelled of rain and old fear. He gestured toward the safe. "Open it." I hesitated, every instinct screaming that this wasn't a normal robbery. The way he stood, too controlled, too patient, wasn't like the junkies who sometimes tried their luck. This man had purpose. I spun the dial with trembling fingers. "Listen, you don't have to do this." "Open it." The tone was sharp now, commanding. When the door clicked open, he didn't even look at the cash inside. Instead, he stepped closer, until I could feel his breath through the mask. "You remember what you did 10 years ago?" The words froze me in place. 10 years ago? I searched my memory, but my mind was a storm of noise. "What are you talking about?" He leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "You do." And then he pulled off the mask. The flashlight's beam wavered in my shaking hand, and for a moment I thought I was hallucinating. The face before me was older, harder, but unmistakable. Daniel. My God! Daniel's eyes were empty, darker than the night outside. His jaw was tight, a small scar cutting through his cheek like a reminder of something I couldn't name. Why are you doing this?" He stared at me as if I were a stranger. "You ruined everything. You don't even know it, do you?" I stepped back, my hand still trembling with the gun. "Daniel, put that down. Whatever this is, we can talk." "Talk?" He let out a broken laugh. "That's what you said to Mom before you..." He stopped himself, and in that silence I felt the walls closing in. "Before I what?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. Daniel turned toward the light, eyes wide like a deer frozen in its glow. Marcus cursed under his breath and raised the gun again. "Marcus, don't!" I shouted, but it was too late. The tires screeched, the beam of headlights flared, and in the chaos of light and thunder, someone screamed. The scream cut through the storm like glass breaking underwater, muffled, distant, but sharp enough to slice through my chest. The car's brakes shrieked, rubber tearing against wet asphalt, the sound ricocheting off the trees. I shielded my eyes as the headlights swelled, bleaching everything white for a split second. Then the world snapped back into color, blurred by rain and fear. Marcus was on the ground, his gun skidding into the ditch. Daniel stood frozen in the middle of the road, his arms half raised, eyes wide with shock. The car had stopped inches from him, engine idling, steam hissing from its hood. A door opened. A woman stepped out. Mid-30s, maybe older, her dark hair plastered to her face by the rain. She looked at all of us, first at Daniel, then at Marcus lying motionless on the gravel, then at me. Her eyes darted between us with the wary precision of someone who'd walked into a nightmare mid-scene. "Is everyone..." She started, then stopped when she saw the gun lying near Marcus's hand. Her voice faltered. "What the hell is going on here?" For a moment, none of us spoke. The only sound was the rain and the slow drip of water from the trees. I could hear my own heartbeat, steady, frantic. Daniel stepped back from the car, trembling. He tried to shoot. "Stay where you are," she said sharply, her voice hardening as she glanced at the weapon. She looked like she'd dealt with fear before and learned to speak over it. "Nobody move." I raised my hands again instinctively. "It's not what it looks like," I said, though I knew how useless those words sounded under the flashing stormlight. She gave me a long, skeptical look, then crouched beside Marcus, checking for a pulse. Her hand came away wet with rain, and something darker. "He's breathing," she said. Her tone caught somewhere between relief and disgust. "Barely." Daniel's voice cracked. I didn't mean, he stepped out in front of the car. I didn't." She cut him off with a sharp glance. "Then help me get him off the road." Together we dragged Marcus's limp body to the shoulder. He groaned once, a deep, animal sound, and his hand twitched, reaching weakly toward the gun lying a few feet away. I kicked it farther into the ditch. The woman looked at me then, her expression tight. "Who are you people?" I hesitated. My throat felt raw. I said, "Family, or what's left of one." Her eyes softened just slightly, but only for a second. "You should call an ambulance. He's losing blood." Daniel nodded numbly, fumbling with his phone, but there was no signal. Out here, there never was. The woman looked around, assessing the desolate stretch of road, the rain, the darkness. She said, "There's a service station on Mile Down. I'll drive him there." Marcus groaned again, eyes fluttering open for a heartbeat. When they locked on me, even through the haze of pain, I saw the same hatred burning behind them. His lips moved, shaping words I couldn't hear over the storm, but I could read them. "You'll pay." Then his eyes rolled back. The woman turned to Daniel. "Help me lift him. You're stronger." Daniel obeyed automatically, his movements stiff, mechanical. They hoisted Marcus into the back seat. The woman slammed the door and climbed behind the wheel, her jaw set. "Follow me if you want to explain whatever the hell this is," she said. Then she gunned the engine and pulled away, tires splashing through the rain, taillights vanishing into the dark curve of the road. For a long moment, I couldn't move. I stood there, drenched and shivering, staring at the space she'd left behind. Daniel was still in the middle of the road, staring down at his hands like they belonged to someone else. "Daniel," I said quietly, "we need to go." He didn't answer. "Daniel?" He looked up slowly, his expression hollow. "I didn't mean to hurt him. I swear I didn't." "I know, but we can't stay here." The words felt strange, like echoes from that night years ago, when I'd said something similar before leaving the wreck. Only this time, I wasn't running from fire. I was running from truth. We climbed into my car. The seats were soaked, the air heavy with the smell of rain and oil. Daniel sat beside me, staring out the window, silent. As I started the engine, I caught a glimpse of his reflection in the windshield. His face was pale, his jaw tight, his eyes distant. I wanted to say something, anything, but I didn't know what words could reach him now. We followed the faint glow of taillights ahead, winding through the wet, endless road. My hands gripped the wheel until my knuckles went white. "Who was she?" Daniel asked suddenly. His voice was barely audible over the rain. "I don't know," I said, "but she saved him." "Maybe she shouldn't have." I glanced at him sharply, but he didn't look at me. He was staring out into the storm, his face a perfect stillness. "If Marcus dies, this is on me. But if he lives..." His voice trailed off. "Daniel, don't," I said quietly. "This isn't your fault." He turned then, his eyes locking on mine. "It's yours. Everything comes back to you." The words hit harder than any punch. I didn't argue. I couldn't. A flash of lightning revealed the faint silhouette of the service station ahead, a lonely rectangle of yellow light in the distance. The woman's car was parked under the awning. As I pulled in, Daniel reached for the door handle. "Wait," I said. He hesitated, hand hovering over the latch. "When this is over, whatever happens, don't let Marcus twist you into something you're not." He looked at me then, and for the first time since the night began, there was something human in his expression. Pain, yes, but also the faintest glimmer of confusion. He didn't answer. We got out and stepped into the glare of the service station's flickering lights. The woman was inside, shouting at the clerk for a phone. Marcus was slumped in the back seat, unmoving, blood pooling beneath him. The air smelled of gasoline and rain. I took a step forward, but Daniel caught my arm. "Don't," he said. "Daniel, I need to make sure he's alive." He shook his head. "If he wakes up, he'll finish what he started." Before I could respond, the woman came running out, waving her phone. "Ambulance is on its way," she said breathlessly. Then she looked between us again. "You two need to start talking, because when the cops get here, none of this is going to make sense." I opened my mouth to answer, but Daniel stepped in front of me. "It was an accident," he said quickly. He came at us with a gun. I tried to stop him." Her gaze narrowed. "And who's he?" "My uncle," Daniel said. His voice was steady, too steady. She turned to me. "And you?" I hesitated. "His father." Her eyes flicked between us, reading something deeper beneath our soaked clothes and hollow faces. "You've both got blood on your hands," she said quietly. "Different kinds, maybe, but it's there." She turned away, muttering something to herself, and went back toward Marcus. Daniel's voice came out barely above a whisper. "She's right." The sound of approaching sirens echoed faintly through the rain, distant but growing louder. Daniel looked toward them, then back at me, his jaw set in that familiar, stubborn way, the same way his mother used to look when she'd already made up her mind. "I can't stay," he said. And before I could stop him, he turned and started walking into the rain. My throat went dry as the flashlight beam slid across the living room wall and stopped, right over the old photo frames. My wife's laughter from years ago, frozen in those pictures, seemed to mock me. Then the flashlight moved again, slow, deliberate, scanning every inch of the room like someone searching for something very specific. My hand shook around the bat. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The figure stepped closer, the floor groaning under his boots. I caught a glimpse of his gloves, black leather, and the faint glint of a metallic object tucked into his belt. My stomach twisted. He wasn't here to steal. He was hunting, and I was the prey. He stopped in front of me. I could see the shape of his chest rising and falling, controlled, calm. Then, without warning, the flashlight turned off. Darkness swallowed everything. I swung the bat wildly, hitting only air. A voice came, low and sharp. Familiar. "Put that down, Dad." The bat froze mid-swing. My heart lurched. I knew that voice. It couldn't be. No, it couldn't. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling, more out of fear than authority. The light came back on, but dimmer this time, angled upward. I saw half a face. My son's face, older, harder, carved with something I didn't recognize. Daniel? What are you doing here?" He tilted his head, studying me like I was a stranger. "You look surprised. I thought you were... God, I thought it was a break-in." He gave a dry laugh. "I suppose it is. Only, I'm not here for your money." There was something in his eyes that made my chest tighten. Not anger. No, worse. Cold, patient hate. I took a step forward, my hands trembling. "Daniel, it's been 5 years. You can't just break into my house like this. What's going on?" 5 years, he repeated softly. "That's how long it took you to pick a new family, isn't it?" I froze. He moved closer, the flashlight shaking slightly in his hand. You didn't even wait for Mom's body to be cold before moving on. I remember how you told me we needed to heal, but all I saw was you forgetting, replacing. That's not fair, I snapped, my voice louder now, the shock giving way to guilt. I tried to keep us together. You ran off. You stopped answering my calls. Because you stopped being my father the moment you pretended she never existed. His voice was steady, but his jaw clenched hard enough to tremble. The words hit like stones. I took another step, cautiously, as if approaching a wild animal. Daniel, you don't know what you're saying. He raised the flashlight, blinding me. I know exactly what I'm saying. There was a sound, metal sliding against fabric. I realized with horror that he had a gun. Daniel, I said slowly, my palms raised, you don't want to do this. He smiled, a small, bitter curve of his mouth. That's where you're wrong, Dad. I've wanted this for a long time. The gun stayed low, but his hand was steady. The beam shifted, catching on the edges of the family photos. Me, my new wife, her little girl, faces that now looked like evidence. You think I don't see the way you live now? The new car, the smiles, the house that doesn't even have a trace of her in it. Like she never mattered. She mattered, I said, the words choking out before I could stop them. Every day I think... you think I don't wake up and remember what I did wrong? I tried to keep her safe, Daniel. I tried... Don't you dare, he cut in, voice shaking. You weren't there. You promised you'd be home that night, remember? But you had a meeting. And she... His breath hitched. She died waiting for you. My chest ached. That old guilt, that unbearable truth burned through me again. I know I failed her. But I lost everything too, Daniel. You, her, myself. You think I moved on? You think this house, this life, means I forgot her? He said nothing. I still see her in every room, I whispered. Every single night, I hear her voice. I never escaped it. I learned how to hide it. His grip on the gun wavered slightly. I saw a flicker. Uncertainty, maybe? Even pain. But it was gone as quickly as it came. That's not enough, he said. You can't bury what you did. You can't just build a new life over her grave. I'm not trying to bury anything. I'm trying to survive. He lowered his eyes for a moment, breathing hard. Then his voice came again, softer. You know what survival looks like to me. Every night, seeing her face, hearing her scream, knowing you could have been there. You should have been there. I felt my knees weaken. Daniel, please.
He took a step closer, the gun glinting under the dim light. You're going to understand what it's like to lose everything, like I did. I tried to reach for him, but he pulled back, his eyes wild, tears glistening now. Then something unexpected happened. Behind him, from the hallway, a small voice called out. Dad? My wife's daughter, Lily, stood there, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide with confusion. Daniel turned sharply. For a split second, the mask cracked. He looked at her, at the innocence staring back at him, and I saw something shift in his expression. Who's that? He demanded, though I could hear the tremor in his voice. Daniel, please, I said quickly. She's just a child. She doesn't know any of this. He stared at her for a long time, his lips pressed tight. Then he turned back to me, his voice low and dangerous. That's her daughter, isn't it? The woman you replaced Mom with? She's my wife, I said quietly, and that's her little girl. She's done nothing wrong. For a heartbeat, I thought he might put the gun down, but then his hand twitched, his jaw locked again. Maybe she deserves to see what you really are, he whispered. I took a step toward him. Daniel? He snapped the gun up, and Lily screamed. The sound shattered the moment like glass. My instincts kicked in. I lunged, grabbing the barrel, twisting it away from her. The shot exploded, deafening, lighting the room for a split second like lightning. The flash burned across my eyes. We struggled, our hands locked on the weapon. Years of rage met years of guilt in that moment. Father and son, tearing each other apart in the dark. Then, another sound. A door slamming open. Footsteps. My wife's voice, panicked, crying out my name. But Daniel didn't stop. His eyes were wet, furious, desperate. "You don't get to live happy," he shouted. And as the second shot rang out, the world tilted, the floor rushing up to meet me, everything blurring into a swirl of sound and shadow. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the house like thunder rolling across an empty field. My ears rang. For a moment, I didn't know if I was alive or dead. My chest burned. The air was thick, too thick to breathe. I felt something warm spreading down my side, sticky and slow. My vision flickered between the ceiling lights and the blurred outline of Daniel's face above me. He stood there, breathing hard, the gun trembling in his hands. His lips were moving, but I couldn't make out the words. The world felt underwater, muffled, distant. I blinked, trying to focus. My wife was screaming somewhere behind him. Lily's sobs broke through my ringing in my ears, sharp and terrified. Daniel took a shaky step backward, the gun lowering. He stammered. "I didn't mean—" My body screamed with pain as I tried to sit up. The bullet hadn't hit anything vital. I could feel that much, but it tore through muscle, hot and pulsing. My hand pressed against the wound, blood seeping through my fingers. "Daniel," I rasped, struggling for breath. "It's not too late." He stared at me, wide-eyed and trembling. The anger was gone now, replaced with raw fear. His chest rose and fell in quick, broken breaths. I didn't want to. "Put the gun down," I said weakly. "Please, son, put it down." My wife moved cautiously from the hallway, her hands raised. Her face was pale, streaked with tears, but her voice was steady. "Daniel, please, you don't want to hurt anyone else." He spun toward her, panicked like a cornered animal. "Stay back." The sound of his voice made Lily cry louder. She hid behind her mother's leg, clutching the stuffed rabbit so tight it looked like she'd crush it. "Daniel," my wife said gently, taking a slow step forward. "You're scared. I can see that. But you can stop this right now." He shook his head violently. "You don't understand. He ruined everything. He left her. He left me." His voice cracked as he said it, like the words themselves tore him apart. "She died alone because of him." Her voice softened even more. "And you've carried that pain all this time, haven't you?" He hesitated. His hand trembled harder. I could see it, the wall inside him breaking, the confusion flooding through.
"She was my mom," he whispered. "She didn't deserve that. He said he loved her." "I did," I said hoarsely, pushing myself upright, ignoring the searing pain in my side. "I still do." Daniel looked at me, his face wet now, the flashlight beam shaking in his other hand. "Then why weren't you there?" The question tore through me. There was no defense, no excuse left, only truth. "Because I was selfish," I said quietly. "Because I thought I had time. I thought I could make it up to her later. And then there wasn't a later. That's what kills me every day, Daniel. Every single day." The gun lowered slightly, his breathing unsteady. My wife's eyes flicked toward me, silently begging me to keep him talking. I never stopped loving her, I continued. When I see you, I see her. Every expression, every look, it's her face I see. You're the only part of her I have left. His lips trembled. He looked down at the gun like it was something poisonous, something that had tricked him. I just wanted you to feel it, what it's like to lose everything. I swallowed hard. I already did, Daniel, but if you pull that trigger again, you'll lose everything too, yourself. For a long, unbearable moment, silence filled the room. The only sound was Lily's quiet crying and the rain outside ticking against the windows. Then Daniel's shoulder sagged. The gun slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a hollow clatter. He stood there, shaking, his head bowed, his breath ragged. I exhaled slowly, relief mixing with pain and exhaustion. My wife rushed to me, pressing her hands against my wound. "Hold on, you're bleeding too much," she whispered. Daniel looked up at us, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't want this," he said, voice barely audible. "I didn't want to hurt you." "I know, but you did, and now we have to fix it." He stared at his hands, as if seeing them for the first time, smeared with traces of my blood. His knees buckled, and he sank to the floor. "I tried to forget her, but every time I close my eyes, she's there. That night, the phone call, the silence afterward." My chest tightened. "You were just a kid. You shouldn't have carried that alone." He shook his head, curling into himself. "You weren't there, Dad. You weren't there." The word shattered me more than the bullet ever could. I reached for him, my hand trembling, blood still dripping from my palm. "But I'm here now." For the first time since he entered the house, he didn't pull away. His hand met mine, hesitant, cold, and for a second I felt that lost connection spark again. My wife's voice trembled as she called for help, her phone pressed to her ear. I heard her give our address, her voice cracking as she explained there'd been a shooting. The sirens in the distance grew louder, weaving through the storm outside. Daniel turned toward the sound, panic flickering in his eyes again. "They'll take me away," he said. I squeezed his hand, my voice weak but firm. "Maybe, but running will destroy you more than any prison could. Stay. Face it. For her." He looked at me, torn between fear and something softer. Guilt, maybe, even understanding. "I don't know how to fix it," he whispered. "You start by not running, and by not letting her death be the only thing that defines you." The sirens stopped outside. Red and blue lights danced across the living room walls, flashing over the family photos, over the shattered coffee table, over our faces, mine pale and slick with sweat, his streaked with tears. The front door burst open. Officers shouted commands. My wife raised her hands. Daniel froze. One of the officers grabbed the gun from the floor, while another pulled Daniel back roughly. He didn't resist. He just looked at me. One long, haunted look that said everything words couldn't. Regret, love, shame, and something else. A silent plea for forgiveness. I tried to nod, but my vision was blurring, the pain finally catching up to me. The last thing I saw before everything faded was Daniel's face as they led him outside into the rain, his eyes fixed on me, terrified and broken, like that little boy I used to tuck into bed after bad dreams. And in that moment, as darkness crept over me again, I realized something. Maybe the robbery I'd feared wasn't about money or things. Maybe my son had come to steal back the years I'd taken from him. The truth, the closure, the father he lost long before tonight. The sirens faded into a dull echo as they took him away. I could still hear the rain hammering against the roof, the rhythm uneven, frantic, as though the night itself was shaking. My vision blurred around the edges. The paramedics' voices came in fragments, urgent, clipped tones that sounded miles away. Hands pressed down on my wound, a sharp sting of disinfectant burned through the fog in my mind. I heard someone shouting numbers, the crackle of radios, the shuffle of boots.
"Stay with us, sir. You're going to be okay."
Their voices overlapped, fading in and out, until everything dissolved into a quiet hum. Then, silence. When I woke again, the world was white and sterile. The steady beep of a heart monitor cut through the air. My throat was dry and my chest ached. A slow pulse of pain radiated from my side, reminding me that I was still here. Alive, barely. For a long time, I stared at the ceiling, trying to remember where I was. Then it hit me all at once. Daniel, the gun, the blood, the look in his eyes. I jolted, wincing as pain shot through me. "Hey, hey, take it easy," came a soft voice beside me. My wife. Her eyes were red and swollen, but her voice was gentle. "You're safe now." I blinked, trying to find words. My mouth was dry, my voice a rasp. "Where's Daniel?" She hesitated. "The police took him." I closed my eyes, my chest tightening. Is he okay?" "He's alive," she said quietly. "They said he didn't resist, he just—" She stopped herself, biting her lip. "He asked if you made it." The room fell silent again, except for the steady rhythm of the monitor. I turned my head slightly toward her. "What did you tell him?" "That you did," she said. Her voice trembled. "That you're still fighting." I exhaled slowly, the weight of everything pressing down on me. "Good," I whispered. "He needs to know that." She brushed a hand over her face, her expression tight. "He needs help, not prison," she said after a long pause. "You saw it, didn't you? He wasn't in control. He's been drowning in that pain for years." "I know. And I let him." She shook her head. "You can't blame yourself for everything." But I could. I always had. The next few days blurred together, a haze of medication, pain, and quiet hospital corridors. Reporters camped outside, hungry for a story. "Father shot by estranged son," one headline read on the muted TV across the room. I couldn't bear to look at it for long. When I was finally strong enough to sit up, a detective came to talk. He was polite but distant, his notepad ready, his questions careful. I told him everything, about the night, the years of silence between Daniel and me, the guilt that had built like rust over time. He listened, nodding occasionally, but his eyes gave nothing away. "We've found no signs of forced entry," he said when I finished. "He must have still had a key." I nodded faintly. "He did. It was his home once." The detective closed his notebook. "He's in custody, but his lawyer's requesting a psychiatric evaluation. Said he's been struggling for years." I looked down at my bandaged side. "He's not a monster. He's my son." "I understand," the detective said quietly. "But there are consequences. The court will decide." After he left, I stared out the window for a long time. The city looked different now. Colder, quieter. The people below moved through their lives unaware of how easily everything could break apart in one night. My wife came later with Lily, who clung to her mother's hand, her eyes wide and uncertain. When she saw me, she hesitated by the door. "It's okay, sweetheart," I said softly. "I'm okay." She shuffled closer, the stuffed rabbit still in her arms. "Is the man who hurt you gone?" I froze. I wanted to lie, to tell her it was over, that bad people always go away. But the truth was more complicated. The man wasn't bad, he was broken. "He's gone for now," I said gently. "But he's someone I love very much. He just made a mistake." Her brow furrowed. "You love him?" I nodded slowly. "Yes. Sometimes people do terrible things because they're hurting. It doesn't make it right, but it means they need help." She didn't answer, just climbed up carefully on the bed and placed her small hand near mine. Her innocence was a weight and a comfort all at once. That night, when they left and the room went quiet again, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying his face, the look just before he dropped the gun, the confusion and sorrow mingling in his eyes. It wasn't rage anymore. It was grief, the kind I never allowed myself to face.
Around midnight, the nurse came in, adjusting the IV, humming softly. I asked her if she could turn off the lights for a bit. When she left, the darkness filled the room again, the kind of darkness that pulled memories to the surface. I remembered the night my wife died, the rain, the call I missed because I thought one more meeting mattered. I told myself I was building a better future for them. I didn't know the future would vanish before I could reach it. Daniel had been 16 then. He hadn't cried at the funeral. He just stared at the casket, unblinking, his jaw tight, as though grief had turned to stone inside him. After that, he stopped speaking to me. I thought giving him space would help, but all I'd done was leave him alone with ghosts. Now, years later, those ghosts had come home. 2 days later, a letter arrived. The nurse handed it to me, saying it had come through the police liaison. My name was scrawled across the front in familiar handwriting, uneven, heavy strokes. Daniel's. My fingers trembled as I opened it. "Dad, I don't know how to explain what happened. I keep replaying it, but it doesn't feel real. I wanted to make you see what I felt, what it was like to lose her. But when I saw you bleeding, I realized I was losing you too. I don't know if I can ever make this right. I just need you to know that I didn't come to kill you. I came to make you remember. I just didn't know it would be like that. Tell her I'm sorry for scaring them. Tell Lily I didn't mean to hurt her either. I don't know what will happen next, but I don't want to hide anymore. Your son, Daniel." The paper trembled in my hands. I read it again and again until the words blurred into one long ache. He hadn't asked for forgiveness. He didn't think he deserved it. But somehow that made me want to give it even more. Outside the hospital window, dawn crept over the horizon, pale light spilling across the skyline. The city was waking, unaware that somewhere in a cold cell, my son was too. The morning after I read Daniel's letter, I asked to be discharged. The doctors protested, said I needed rest, observation. But I'd had enough of sterile rooms and white walls. I needed air. I needed to face what was left. My wife drove me home in silence, her hand occasionally tightening on the wheel whenever she caught me staring out the window for too long. The rain had stopped, but the world still looked washed clean, colors muted as if even the sky was exhausted from what had happened. When we reached the house, I paused on the front porch. The door still had the bullet hole near the hinge, a jagged reminder of the night everything fractured. The police had left it as evidence. I reached out, touched the splintered wood, and for a moment, I saw Daniel again. His shaking hands, his eyes burning with pain and love twisted into rage. Inside, the house smelled of cleaning chemicals. My wife had tried to erase the blood, the chaos, but some stains never really go away. I sat in the living room, staring at the family photos on the wall. One frame hung crooked. Me, my wife, Lily smiling bright, sunlight pouring through the window that day. But on the shelf below, I noticed another frame I hadn't seen in years. Daniel and his mother. It had been tucked away in a box in the attic. My wife must have found it and brought it down. In that picture, his face was open, innocent, the corners of his smile reflecting hers. I picked it up, my hand trembling, and whispered, "I'm sorry." That evening, I made a decision. No more running from the past, no more pretending that time could cover what guilt had buried.
The next morning, I called Daniel's lawyer. I wanted to see him. It took a week for approval, 7 long days of waiting, replaying every memory in my mind, the birthdays I missed, the dinners I canceled, the promises I broke. Every version of me that failed him lined up in a silent row, judging. The prison was gray and endless, the kind of place where time didn't move forward, it just lingered. The guard led me through metal doors and echoing corridors until we reached a small room divided by glass. When Daniel walked in, I barely recognized him. The defiance was gone. His face looked older, hollow, like he'd aged years and weeks. He sat down slowly, eyes cast low. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us felt like another person in the room, heavy, waiting. Then, softly, I said, "I got your letter."
He nodded, still not looking up. "I didn't think you'd answer." I had to. My voice cracked, but I kept going. Because everything I didn't say to you before, everything I ignored, it led us here. He finally looked up, and I saw it. The flicker of that boy who used to sit beside me on the porch, talking about his future, before grief had rewritten him. "I never wanted it to go that far," he whispered. "When I saw the blood, I thought I'd killed you. I wanted to die right there." I leaned closer to the glass. "You didn't kill me, Daniel. You woke me up." He frowned slightly. "I spent years trying to bury your mother's death, pretending that working, moving on, building a new life would fix something broken inside me. But grief doesn't disappear. It waits. And I made you carry mine too. That's what I did wrong." His jaw tightened. "I blamed you for everything. I had every reason to, but I should have been there to take it. I should have listened." Tears welled in his eyes, and this time he didn't hide them. "I just wanted her back." "I did too," I said. "But maybe this is how we bring her back. Not through pain, not through hate, but by remembering her together." He stared at me for a long time, his reflection blurring in the glass. Then he nodded, small, uncertain, but real. The guard signaled that time was up. Daniel wiped his face quickly, trying to compose himself. But his voice was steady when he spoke again. "Dad, if I ever get out of here—" I interrupted him gently. "You will, and when you do, we start over. No lies, no pretending." A faint, broken smile crossed his lips. "You really think that's possible?" I pressed my palm against the glass. "I have to. Otherwise, none of this means anything." He lifted his hand too, placing it opposite mine. The cold glass separated us, but for the first time in years, I didn't feel distance. I felt connection. Thin, fragile, but alive. When I left the prison, the world felt different. The sun had broken through the clouds, the light sharp and honest. It didn't erase the darkness, but it didn't hide it either. I liked that. Weeks passed. My recovery was slow, but every morning I made it a ritual to walk into the living room, sit by that photo of Daniel and his mother, and talk to her. Not like a ghost, not like a confession, just conversation. I told her about Lily's laughter, about the quiet evenings, about the letter. Sometimes I told her I was afraid, that maybe Daniel would never forgive me, that maybe I didn't deserve it. But then I'd look at her smile in that photograph and remember, she always believed people could come back from anything. Months later, I received another letter from Daniel. His handwriting was steadier this time. "Dad, they started group therapy here. I've been going. It's hard, but it helps. They ask us to write letters to the people we hurt. I wrote one to Mom. I think she'd want me to write to you too. I can't undo what I did, but I'm learning how to understand it. Maybe one day we can talk again, without the glass between us. Your son, Daniel. I folded the letter carefully, my hands trembling again, but this time not from pain, from something I hadn't felt in years. Hope! That night, I took the photo of Daniel and his mother and hung it beside our new family portrait. 2 frames, side by side, past and present, neither replacing the other, just existing together. When Lily asked me why I put it there, I told her, because families aren't perfect. They're stories, and every story has chapters you don't skip, no matter how hard they are. She nodded thoughtfully, then smiled. So does this mean Daniel will come home one day? I looked at the photo again. The boy with his mother, her hand resting gently on his shoulder, the promise of love still there, even after everything that followed.
Yes, I said softly. One day he will. And as the house settled into quiet that night, I sat in the same room where it had all happened, the screams, the gunshot, the breaking, and realized something profound. Sometimes it takes destruction to rebuild truth. Sometimes the robbery isn't of things, but of time, of love, of the pieces of ourselves we give away to regret. But when morning comes and you're still breathing, you get one more chance to take them back.
You really don't remember, do you? He said, lowering his weapon slightly. That night, the fight, the car. A cold wave of recognition hit me. The accident, his mother, Claire, the twisted metal, the rain. I dropped the gun to the counter as the memory clawed its way back. That wasn't... Daniel, it wasn't my fault. She died because of you, he screamed, his voice cracking. You were drunk. You swore you'd changed, but you hadn't. You never did. Rain battered the windows like applause for his fury. I wanted to reach for him, to explain, but my words felt small, useless. I didn't mean for it to happen, I said, tears rising before I could stop them. I tried to save her. He slammed his hand on the counter, gum shaking in his grip. You saved yourself. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating his face, raw, twisted with grief and rage. For the first time, I saw the boy he used to be flicker behind his eyes. Daniel, I whispered. I've lived with that guilt every day. I lost her too. He flinched, the gun lowering just a fraction. Don't, he said, voice trembling. Don't act like you cared. I took a step forward. I did. You were my reason to live after she was gone. He shook his head violently. Then why did you send me away? Boarding school, therapists, strangers, anyone, but you. The words struck me like blows. I thought I was protecting you, I said weakly. I didn't want you to grow up hating me. He let out a bitter laugh, too late for that. The gun wavered again, and for a terrifying moment, I thought he might actually pull the trigger. Then something shifted in his eyes, a flash of doubt, pain. You weren't supposed to be here tonight, he said quietly. I just wanted to scare you. My breath hitched. Daniel, he looked at me, his hand trembling. But now that I see you, I don't know what I want anymore. He turned toward the door, shoulders hunched, the mask hanging loosely in his hand. Daniel, wait! He stopped.
The rain had softened outside, but inside, the silence was unbearable. "You used to wait for me," he said, not turning around. "Birthdays, holidays, every time I thought maybe you'd come back. But you never did. I didn't know how. I didn't think you'd want me to." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You were right." And before I could take another step, he walked out into the rain, leaving the door wide open behind him. The cold wind swept in, carrying the smell of wet asphalt and lost years. I stood there, my heart breaking, realizing that the robbery I feared had stolen something far greater, my last chance to fix what I'd destroyed. But as I turned to close the door, I saw something on the counter.
A photograph. Us. Daniel, at 8 years old, smiling with ice cream smeared across his face, my arm around him, his mother behind the camera, and scrawled on the back in his handwriting, "This isn't over." The storm outside began again, harder this time, and I knew he meant it. The story burned through my chest like a brand. This isn't over. I stared at them until the ink blurred. The sound of rain returned, hammering the windows, whispering against the roof like 1,000 small accusations. The shop felt colder now, emptier, though the lights had flickered back to life. Everything looked too bright, too sterile, as if the world itself was pretending nothing had happened. But something had. My son had come back not for me, but for revenge. And he was still out there. I locked the door and leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. My hands were shaking so badly that I could barely hold the photo. I ran my thumb across Daniel's small face, the one I hadn't seen in a decade, and the guilt hit me fresh, raw, as though it had been waiting all these years. That night, after the accident, I had told myself I was doing the right thing, keeping him away from the chaos, from my drinking, from my failures. But now it was clear all I'd done was abandon him to his grief. The city outside hissed under the rain, and for a long time I just stood there, listening. Somewhere out there, my son was walking those same wet streets, angry and broken, because of me. I couldn't sleep that night. Every sound outside made me flinch. A car door slamming, a siren in the distance, footsteps and puddles. I saw Daniel's face in all of it. That mixture of pain and fury, and his words echoed over and over, "You don't even know what you did." By dawn, I made a decision. I had to find him before he did something worse, to me or to himself. I started with his old address from the letters I'd sent years ago, letters that had come back unopened. The neighborhood was rough, forgotten by the city. Graffiti covered the walls, and the air smelled of oil and loneliness. I knocked on a few doors, showed his picture, the one from the photograph he'd left me, but most people shook their heads or turned away. An old woman on the corner, sweeping her porch, squinted at the photo. She said, "He used to stay around here. Quiet boy. Kept to himself. Moved out months ago. Said something about finding his father." My stomach turned. I asked, "Did he say where he went?" She shook her head slowly. "No, but he looked angry, like he was carrying ghosts." That night, I found myself driving past the house we once lived in, the one Daniel grew up in before everything fell apart. It was abandoned now, windows boarded,
the front gate half broken. The rain had stopped, but the air was still thick with the smell of damp wood and memory. I parked across the street and just watched it. For a moment, I thought I saw movement inside. A shadow, the faintest glimmer of light through a crack in the boards. My heart kicked. I got out, walked across the street, and pushed open the gate. It groaned the same way it used to when Daniel would come running home from school. Every step I took brought back pieces of a life I'd buried. His laughter, Claire's voice, the warmth of dinners we'd never share again. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust. My flashlight beam cut across the empty living room, over peeling wallpaper and furniture covered with sheets. The place was a tomb, holding only echoes. Then I saw it. On the kitchen counter, under the faint glow of a candle stub, was another photograph. This one was newer. Daniel, as an adult, standing outside what looked like a halfway house. His expression was flat, hollow, and on the back, in the same handwriting, "You'll see what I saw." A chill ran through me. What was he planning? What did he mean by that? I turned, and something shifted behind me. A faint sound. Wood creaking upstairs. I froze. "Daniel?" I called out softly. "Son, if you're here, please, let's talk." No answer. I climbed the stairs, each step a slow echo in the empty house. The door to his old room was half open, swaying slightly, as if touched by a breeze. When I pushed it open, the flashlight flickered across the walls, and my breath caught. The room was covered in photographs, hundreds of them. My face from years ago, newspaper clippings of the accident, police reports, and in the center of it all, a picture of Claire's wrecked car with the words, "He lived, she didn't," written over it in red ink. I staggered back, heart pounding. He'd been watching me, studying me, planning something. And then I saw it. Taped to the window frame, a note scrawled hastily in the same hand. "Tomorrow night, the place where it ended." The crash site. I knew it instantly. That lonely stretch of highway outside town where the road curves too sharply and the rain never seems to stop. I hadn't been there since that night. I couldn't. But he wanted me there now. I drove back to the shop and sat in silence, the note trembling in my hand. The storm had rolled in again, and with every flash of lightning, I saw Daniel's face. Older, colder, but still my son. What did he want me to see? My guilt? My death? As midnight neared, I poured a cup of coffee, untouched, and watched the rain streak down the window. I thought of Claire, how she'd look at me when I came home late, the disappointment hidden behind her tired smile. And I thought of Daniel, how I'd promised her I'd protect him. I'd broken both promises. The clock ticked toward morning, and I knew sleep wasn't coming. I kept seeing the photograph, those 4 words on the back. This isn't over. And somewhere deep down, I realized he was right. Because no matter how much I wanted to believe it was all in the past, Daniel wasn't just after revenge. He wanted me to remember. The next evening, the rain returned, heavier than before, washing the streets in a slick silver haze. I drove in silence, the wipers beating a slow rhythm against the windshield, the engine humming like a restless heart.
Every mile closer to that place felt like a descent into something I'd spent years trying to forget. The road curved through the outskirts of town, lined with skeletal trees, their branches reaching like black fingers toward the car as I passed. The headlights cut through the fog, and for a moment I caught sight of the old guardrail, twisted, rusted, scarred. The same one from that night. I pulled over to the side of the road, the tires crunching against gravel, and turned off the engine. The silence was almost unbearable. The crash site looked different now. The grass taller, the road cracked, nature slowly swallowing what man had destroyed. But it was the same bend, the same darkness, the same weight in the air. I could still smell the gasoline, hear the screech of metal, her scream. Everything I'd buried clawed its way back. Lightning flashed, and in that instant of white light, I saw someone standing across the road. Daniel! He was drenched, his hood pulled back, eyes locked on me. No mask this time, no gun in sight, just him. My son. My ghost. I got out of the car slowly, raising my hands, though I didn't know why. "Daniel," I said, voice trembling. "I came," he said quietly. His tone wasn't angry this time. It was tired, like every word cost him something. The rain soaked through my coat as I stepped closer. "You said you wanted me to see what you saw." He nodded toward the road, that cursed curve that had taken his mother. "Do you remember this place?" "I never forgot," I whispered. He looked at me, eyes hollow but burning with something deeper than rage. "You lied to me." My throat tightened. "About what?" "You told me she died instantly, that she didn't suffer." I froze. "She didn't—" I started, but he cut me off. "I found the police report. I went to the wrecking yard. I saw the car. I spoke to the first responder. She was alive when they found her. She was asking for you." The words gutted me. My knees nearly buckled as the truth tore through years of denial. "She was calling your name," Daniel said, stepping closer, water streaming down his face, mixing with tears. "But you weren't there. You ran." "I didn't run," I said, shaking my head violently. I went for help. The car was on fire. I couldn't—" He laughed bitterly. "You were drunk, Dad. You couldn't even stand." His voice was trembling, but his stare was ice. "I remember the headlights," he said softly, looking past me. "I remember the rain, the screaming, the smell of fuel. I remember you pulling me out, and then nothing. I thought you went back for her." "I tried," I whispered. "God knows I tried." "But you didn't make it, and she died waiting for you." The thunder rolled overhead long and low, echoing through the hills. I could barely breathe. Every memory I'd locked away burst open. The sound of Claire's voice, the flames, the guilt. I'd told myself I'd done all I could, but deep down I'd always known the truth. I froze. I panicked, and she paid the price. Daniel stepped closer until he was just a few feet away. "Do you have any idea what that does to a kid? To grow up thinking his father was a hero, only to find out he was a coward?" I couldn't meet his eyes. "I wasn't a hero," I said, "and I never claimed to be." "Then why did you let me believe it?" "Because it was the only way to keep you from hating me," I said. "The only way I could survive myself." He let out a harsh breath, looking away. "Survive yourself. You always think it's about you." The rain softened, turning into a mist, the kind that clings to skin and refuses to let go.
The silence stretched between us like a chasm, filled only by the whisper of wind and the hum of memory. Then Daniel turned toward the wreck site, the place where the guardrail bent inward, where the soil still looked blackened beneath the weeds. "I used to come here," he said, "when I couldn't sleep, when I hated you. I'd stand right here and imagine what it felt like, the crash, the fear. I wanted to feel what she felt. I felt something inside me crack. "Daniel, please," I said, "you don't have to carry that." He turned back, eyes flashing. "Don't tell me what I have to carry. You gave it to me." I took a step forward, desperate now. "Then let me take it back. Let me do something, anything." "You can't fix it. You can't bring her back. You can't change what you did." "I know," I said softly. "But I can be here now. I can face it." He stared at me for a long moment, rain dripping from his hair, his jaw trembling. I could see the war behind his eyes, the boy who wanted to forgive and the man who couldn't. "You think this is forgiveness? You think coming here makes it right?" "No," I said. "Nothing will make it right, but running from it made it worse." He looked at me, really looked, and something shifted in his expression, a flicker of something like recognition or sorrow. Then Daniel turned toward the tree line, and I saw a faint glow through the mist. Headlights. Another car. Daniel stepped back, his hand going to his pocket. My pulse spiked. "What's that?" I asked. He didn't answer. The car pulled closer, its lights cutting across us. A dark sedan, no license plate. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about me and Daniel anymore. He'd brought someone else. The door opened, and a tall man stepped out, face hidden under a hood. He moved with the calm confidence of someone who didn't need to hurry. Daniel didn't look at him, but he didn't stop him either. "Daniel," I said, voice rising, "who is that?" He stayed silent, his face pale under the glow of the headlights. The man walked toward me slowly, stopping a few feet away. His voice was deep, steady. "You don't remember me, do you?" The tone made my blood run cold. I looked at Daniel, but he just stared at the ground. And before I could answer, the stranger said, "You should. I was there that night too." The words hit me like a blow to the chest. The stranger took a step closer, his boots sinking into the wet gravel, the rain sliding off the hood of his jacket. His face was still hidden in shadow, but his presence felt familiar in a way that made my stomach twist.
"What do you mean you were there?" I asked, my voice low, cautious. He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "I was the one who pulled your wife's body from the wreck before the flames reached her." My breath caught. "I tried to save her," he said, his tone flat, almost rehearsed. "But she was already too far gone. You, though—" He paused, his eyes burning through the dirt. "You were gone long before that. I remember shouting for help. You were nowhere." I felt my knees weaken. The sound of rain filled the silence that followed, sharp and relentless. "I didn't know," I managed to whisper. The man's voice hardened. "You didn't want to know. You left her to die, and you left your son to rot in that lie you built." Daniel still hadn't moved. He stood a few paces behind the man, eyes down, expression unreadable. I tried to find something in his face, guilt, regret, doubt, but there was nothing. Just silence. "Who are you?" I asked the stranger, forcing my voice to steady. He reached up, pulled back his hood, and for a moment I didn't recognize him. But then the pieces clicked into place. The years had aged him. Deep lines around his mouth, a scar across his brow, yet his eyes were unmistakable. "Marcus."
I breathed. He nodded once. You remember now. Claire's brother. The last time I saw him was at her funeral. He'd stood by the coffin, eyes full of venom, jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth would break. He didn't say a word to me then, just watched as they lowered her into the ground, as if memorizing the sight for later. And now, later, had come. I didn't know you two were in contact, I said, my gaze flicking between him and Daniel. Marcus glanced back at Daniel briefly. He found me. He wanted answers. I gave him the truth you never did. The rain intensified, drumming against the car roof, splattering across our faces. My heart pounded like a warning. Daniel, I said, trying to reach him. You don't understand what this man is doing. He's using you. Using me? Daniel finally looked up, his expression twisted with disbelief. He told me the truth. You've been lying my whole life. I lied to protect you, to protect what little we had left. Protect me? His voice cracked. You abandoned me, Dad. You let me grow up hating myself because I thought I was part of your mistake. Marcus showed me everything. The police reports, the photos, the witnesses. You ran from the car. You left her. The accusation was final, like a javel strike.
I stepped toward him, hands raised. I panicked, Daniel. I wasn't thinking. Marcus cut me off with a sharp movement. You were drunk, he said. That's what you were. You shouldn't have been behind the wheel at all. I've paid for that every single day, I snapped. You think I don't wake up hearing her voice, seeing that night over and over? Marcus smirked. Then maybe tonight's the night it ends. He reached inside his coat, and I saw the glint of metal before the rain caught it. A gun. Daniel flinched, taking a step back. Marcus, no, he said quickly. We agreed. Marcus didn't look at him. His eyes stayed fixed on me. You said you wanted closure, kid. This is closure. Daniel shook his head, his voice cracking. Not like this. I didn't want him dead. I just wanted him to understand what he did. Marcus raised the gun anyway, the barrel steady in his hand. Sometimes understanding comes too late. I lifted my hands slowly. Marcus, listen to me. If you do this, you destroy him too. You think killing me brings peace? It'll just give him another ghost to carry. Maybe that's what he needs, Marcus said coldly. Lightning flashed, lighting his face, wet, twisted with years of rage. I saw the man he used to be flicker for just a second, the brother-in-law who once laughed in my kitchen, who teased Claire for marrying me. That man was gone. Marcus, Daniel said, stepping between us now, his hands trembling. Stop! Marcus's voice softened, almost gentle. Daniel, you don't know what he took from us. I know exactly what he took, Daniel said, his voice breaking. But if you kill him, you take what's left of me. The tension crackled between them, the gun wavering. My breath came shallow, my mind racing. One wrong word, one twitch, and everything would end right here, on the same road that had started it all. Then Daniel did something I didn't expect. He turned to me, his face pale, eyes glassy. Tell me the truth, all of it, right now. I swallowed hard. Daniel, tell me. The rain drowned out everything else. My voice was barely a whisper. I was drunk. I thought I could handle it. We argued. She said she wanted to take you and leave. I told her she couldn't. I was angry, reckless. I drove too fast, lost control. When the car hit the guardrail, I froze. I heard her screaming your name, and I ran for help, but I was too far. When I came back, she was gone. Silence. The thunder rolled through the hills like a warning. Daniel's eyes glistened with tears that wouldn't fall.
He looked from me to Marcus and back again. "So it's true," he said quietly. "Everything he told me." I nodded slowly. "Yes, but he didn't tell you what came after. I stopped drinking. I built the store. Every day, I tried to be someone you could be proud of. I just didn't know how to face you." Marcus scoffed. "You think that redeems you?" "No," I said, "but it's all I have." Daniel took another step back, as if the ground beneath him was vanishing. "You both ruined everything," he said softly. "She's gone, and now I don't even know who I am anymore." "Son," I said, reaching out, but he pulled away. Marcus lowered the gun slightly, his expression uncertain now. Then from the distance, another pair of headlights appeared. Slow, steady, growing brighter. A car was approaching.